The sun was sinking behind the red hills when Caleb Morgan pressed his pen to the paper and felt his hand hesitate. The ranch office smelled of old wood, dust, and coffee gone cold, a place that had witnessed births, arguments, and funerals long before this moment. Outside, the land stretched wide and tired, the grass thin from drought and years of stubborn hope. This ranch had been in his family for 3 generations, passed down with stories and expectations heavier than the mortgage that now threatened to take it away. Across the table sat Nalin, an Apache man with calm, unreadable eyes. His wife Atsa beside him, their 2 children quiet but watchful. They did not fidget. They did not look at the papers. They waited as if time itself bent toward them. Caleb cleared his throat and slid the deed forward, the paper whispering against the wood. "You understand," he said, forcing a steadiness he didn't feel. "This land ain't worth much anymore. River runs low. Soil's worn thin." Nalin studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Land does not lose its value when it suffers," he said. "That is when it remembers most." The words settled over Caleb like evening dust. He thought of the winter after his wife died, when grief hollowed him out and neighbors stopped coming by. He remembered the knock on his door. Nalin standing there with firewood, food, and no questions. No pity, just presence. When the bank sent letters stamped in red, it was this Apache family that helped mend fences, haul water, and sit with him in silence when the nights grew too long. Caleb signed. The scratch of the pen felt louder than thunder. With that single motion, he gave them the riverland, the oldest part of the ranch, the place his grandfather once called sacred, without ever knowing why. His chest tightened, but not with regret, with release. Atsa stood and gathered the papers carefully as though they were fragile. Before leaving, she paused and met Caleb's eyes. "You have shown respect," she said softly. "Respect travels farther than words." When the family stepped outside, the sky had turned violet, the first stars waking above the hills. Caleb watched them walk toward the river, their figures slowly swallowed by the land. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of water and sage. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes began to howl, not in warning but in chorus. Caleb didn't know it yet, but the land had already begun to answer his choice. Caleb Morgan woke long before dawn with the uneasy feeling that he was no longer alone. The house was silent, yet the air seemed thick, humming softly as if the land itself were awake. He lay still, listening. Then he heard it, footsteps, distant but many, moving with a steady rhythm that raised the hair on his arms. Not rushed, not careless, intentional. He swung his legs out of bed and crossed to the window. The darkness beyond the glass was not empty. Small fires flickered across the valley like fallen stars, dotting the land he thought he knew. One by one, shapes emerged from the mist. Men, women, elders bent with age, children clinging to blankets, horses standing calm as statues. There were far too many to count. Caleb's heart pounded as instinct drove him toward the rifle rack. His fingers brushed the wood, then stopped. No voices carried on the wind. No shouts, no threat. Only movement and quiet purpose. He pulled on his coat and stepped onto the porch, the cold biting his face as the first gray hint of morning touched the horizon. As the light grew, the figures became clear. An entire Apache tribe stood upon his land. They did not surround the house. They did not advance. They simply waited. From among them, Nalin stepped forward alone, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. He raised a hand, not in greeting but in acknowledgement. "You honored one family," he said, his voice calm and steady in the still air. "At dawn the people come to honor you." Caleb swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," he said, the words sounding small against the wide valley. Nalin's eyes softened. "You caused remembrance." Behind him, elders knelt and pressed their palms to the soil. Children moved toward the river, whispering as if entering a place of prayer. A low song began, carried by voices rough with age and smooth with youth, weaving together into something ancient and alive. The sound settled deep into Caleb's bones. "This land was taken long ago," Nalin continued, "not only from us, but from itself. Last night it was returned, not by force, not by law, but by choice." The sun crested the hills, washing the valley in gold. Caleb felt his knees weaken, emotion tightening his chest in a way he couldn't name. An elder stepped forward, her hair silver, her gaze sharp as flint. She studied him as though measuring his spirit. "The land has marked you now," she said. The words echoed in the morning air, and Caleb knew with sudden certainty that nothing on this ranch would ever be the same again. By mid-morning, the quiet gathering could no longer remain a secret. Dust rose along the distant road as sheriff trucks slowed at the ridge, their engines idling while deputies stared out in disbelief. A few neighboring ranchers appeared as well, hats pulled low, hands resting near their belts, fear and curiosity mixing in equal measure. Whispers traveled faster than truth, bending the scene into something dangerous that it was not. Yet nothing about the valley felt violent. The Apache people moved with calm intention. Some repaired sections of fence long broken by storms and neglect. Others cleared debris from the riverbank, their laughter soft, respectful, as though even joy had learned to speak quietly here. Elders stood in small circles murmuring prayers, while children placed stones along the water's edge in careful patterns. The land itself seemed to breathe easier beneath their hands. Caleb remained near the house, uncertain where to stand, until Atsa approached and rested her hand lightly on his arm. "You are not outside this," she said. "You are part of what has begun." Her words loosened something. In him he hadn't known was bound. He followed her into the valley, feeling less like an owner and more like a guest, finally welcomed home. When the sheriff finally approached, Nalin met him halfway, speaking calmly, firmly, with the patience of someone used to being misunderstood. Papers were shown, explanations given. There were no raised voices, no demands, only truth. The tension eased, then dissolved, and the trucks slowly turned back toward town. At noon, the people gathered in a wide circle, the sun high above them. An elder woman stepped forward, her presence commanding without force. "Today," she said, "we witness a man who remembered what others forgot, that land is not a possession, but a responsibility." She turned to Caleb, her gaze unwavering. "You gave without asking for reward. That is why the land answered you." Nalin stepped beside her and revealed a document, carefully folded and worn at the edges. It was legal, binding, unmistakable. The tribe would protect the ranch, restore the river, and ensure Caleb could live on the land for the rest of his life without fear of banks or claims. The land would heal, and so would the man who had listened to it. As afternoon faded, the Apache people departed as quietly as they had arrived, leaving behind mended earth, fresh plantings, and a carved symbol near the river, a mark of protection and remembrance. When Caleb stood alone again at sunset, the valley no longer felt empty. It felt watched over.